What's going on, guys, and welcome back to part 2 of my journey to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. This month, I am going to be talking about Mission Impossible 2 from 2000, a film which is generally agreed to be the weakest of the Mission Impossible franchise. And I'm inclined to agree with that assessment. Time has not been kind to this film, but I try to be a positive person most of the time, so as per usual, I'll talk about the good aspects of this film first. Now, most of the things I like in this film are purely conceptual and have little to do with their actual execution. For example, I like the idea of this film's main villain, Sean Ambrose, a former IMF agent who has gone rogue, meaning that Ethan and his team are forced to go up against a guy who is very familiar with their different tools and strategies, knowledge he can use to his advantage. But in the film, this character is just a cheesy, mustache-twirling villain who is incredibly overacted by Dougray Scott. I also like the general plot of this film, how it's essentially just greedy businessmen and corrupt officials such as Sean Ambrose and Brendan Gleeson's character wanting to spread a deadly virus and profit off of the vaccine. That's very interesting, and I'm sure some would argue is quite relevant to the world we're currently living in. And there are some fun action scenes in this film, particularly around the midpoint when Ethan breaks into a facility in order to destroy the vials containing the Chimera virus. It's an exciting sequence, which is in itself kind of a ripoff of the Langley heist from the first film, but it is one of the most effective sequences of suspense this film has to offer. However, the action scenes are hampered by this film's over-reliance on slow motion. To my understanding, the director of this film, John Woo, has also directed several martial arts films, and you can see that influence on display, especially in the final fight between Ethan and Ambrose. You can tell that it was meant to be cool and stylistic, but unfortunately, it just comes off distracting and diminishes what would otherwise be some pretty kick-ass action. There are a variety of strange editing choices throughout this film, and I'm not just talking about the slow motion. A lot of scenes are cut together really quickly, with fast zooms on either an object or someone's face, accompanied by some weird sound effect. A lot of the dialogue is extremely cringy as well. Most of it is either too melodramatic or is trying to be fourth wall breaking and self-aware. My favorite instance of it comes from this moment.
Well, this is not mission difficult, Mr. Hunt. It's mission impossible.
For once, Hans Zimmer missed the mark, in my opinion. His score, just like the rest of the film, feels like it's trying too hard to be cool. It can be very overbearing, especially with the rock version of the Mission Impossible theme. It all gets to a point where this film cannot be taken seriously. Don't get me wrong, all the Mission Impossible films are kind of goofy, but they walk a fine line, and this film just goes too far. It's too over the top, to a point where Ethan Hunt kicks a gun out of the sand, and it magically flies perfectly into his hand so he can shoot the villain. And just like with the previous film, you can tell they had no idea who they wanted Ethan Hunt to be as a character. In this film, it seems like they want him to be the James Bond ladies' man type character who's hooking up with women, but then he does some pretty messed up stuff, like knocking out the villain's henchman, disguising him as himself, and then watching with a grin on his face as he is brutally murdered. That seems extremely out of character for not only who we know Ethan to be now, but also the character we had come to know up until that point. They also do a terrible job of explaining how the Chimera virus works. so I can't really buy into the large-scale consequences at the end of this film. Ambrose drops Naya off in the middle of a heavily populated area of the city, implying that it's spread through the airways. But if so, how did Ambrose or Ethan not also get infected with the virus? Ambrose had the antidote, so it wouldn't surprise me if he injected himself with it off-screen. But Ethan was literally screaming in Naya's face seconds after she injected herself with the virus, but somehow he had the stamina to pull off this crazy heist mission to retrieve the antidote and also have a battle to the death on the beach with Ambrose. Yeah, right. Tandy Newton plays Ethan's love interest in this film, and she's exactly that, another boring love interest. She does the best with what she's been given, but in my opinion, they didn't figure out how to properly write female characters until Michelle Monaghan was introduced in Mission Impossible 3. While MI3 does have its problems, when Ethan is rushing to save his wife towards the end of that film, there's a feeling of visceral tension to it. When Ethan gets into a high-speed chase trying to deliver the antidote to Naya at the end of this film, I couldn't care less because their relationship felt so fake and manufactured. It's all just schlock. Competently made schlock, but schlock nonetheless. At the end of the day, MI2 is just a product of its time. It's entertaining, but not always for the right reasons. I'll be back next month to talk about Mission Impossible 3, but as for now, you guys let me know. What are your thoughts on Mission Impossible 2? Do you agree with me that it's aggressively mediocre, or do you disagree with me and think that it's criminally underrated? Just whatever your thoughts are, please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Bye.